Good afternoon. So I just want to take a moment, thank everybody for taking time out of their day, as Sergeant Osborn says, not only to recognize the outstanding work of the men and women of the Tallahassee Police Department, but also the outstanding citizenry and participation and involvement of some of our neighbors. You know, we ask people all the time, get involved, right? We talk about see something, say something, do something. And we're going to recognize some of our citizens today who have done exactly what we've asked for. And it's through those partnerships and that involvement that we've seen the progress in the crime rate coming down in the last year. And the more we work together, the better progress we're going to make. The more progress we make, the safer our community will be. So, again, it's important that we all continue to work together that way. I want to take a moment, too, and recognize a few people. City Manager Reese Goad is here. Assistant City Manager Cynthia Barber. The woman behind the scenes that keeps me and Cynthia straight, Miss Cynthia Shingles, always keeping us straight. Chief Chris Summers from the Young County Sheriff Office, not a stranger to our TPD family. And Dr. Reverend R.B. Holmes, sir, thank you for joining us today. And it says a lot when we have that kind of support from the city leadership, community, and our partner agencies to also come join us today. So, again, it's outstanding work that we're here to represent. And just a reminder, when you know something where an officer, one of our staff members, our civilian support staff has done something above and beyond, please take the few minutes to recognize them. Write them up. You don't have to be a sergeant. You don't have to be a lieutenant or a major or myself or deputy chief to take the time to recognize somebody. We want to make sure that we recognize, and I know that although we've got a lot of people to say thank you today and appreciate what they've done, there's so much more good work that's being done that a lot of times people aren't aware of. So take the time out to recognize each other. And when you get that kind of nomination from a peer, that sometimes means even more than getting it from a supervisor. Because when your peers recognize the work that you do, it really sends a strong message. So please take the time out to do that. And thank you to the awards board for all their work in getting this done today to make sure we can recognize our employees. So thank you.
Okay, before we begin the award portion, I'd like to introduce the awards board member. I took over as chair in December of this year, so this is all new to me. This is my first ceremony, so we're all experiencing this together. But the people that have really helped me in getting this prepared are Sergeant Greg Wilder, Sara Latorre, Annaliese Weirenga, Investigator Karen Ryan, Investigator Charles Williams, Investigator Ed Guerra, Investigator Kelli Isaacs, and not able to be here is Investigator Eric Robinson. All right, a few housekeeping matters before we begin. The letter and certificate for those department members being recognized today will be placed in personnel files following the ceremony. And department members who are receiving an award for which you previously received the same designation, please see me after the ceremony to discuss a replacement uniform pin for one that you will be given today. The mission of the awards board is to recognize outstanding service from not only department members, but also citizens from the community. We will start with police service awards, which are awarded to citizens who have provided assistance to members of the Tallahassee Police Department. First, if I could have Mr. Roger Godwin and Mr. Glenn Abbott come to the front. On February 9th, 2017, Tallahassee Police Department officers responded to a call for service regarding shots fired at 2710 Country Club Drive. Upon the arrival of the officers, no suspects were located, but the investigation revealed several expended brass shell casings on the ground. During a canvass for damaged property, it was determined an apartment manager's vehicle had been struck by a bullet. Further inspection showed the bullet had penetrated one door and become lodged in the other door. The forensics unit responded to retrieve the bullet, but found it was embedded too deeply for them to be able to remove without assistance by someone with more knowledge to keep from damaging the citizen's door panel. A telephone call was made to City of Tallahassee Fleet Department Supervisor Mr. Roger Godwin for possible assistance. Mr. Godwin and Mr. Glenn Abbott immediately responded to the scene. Mr. Abbott was able to remove the door panel so forensics could recover the projectile. Mr. Abbott was able to reattach the door panel without there being any damage or loss of functionality to the citizen's vehicle. Mr. Godwin and Mr. Abbott, the Tallahassee Police Department sincerely thanks you for your willingness to drop what you were doing and provide vital assistance in the collection of evidence for a serious criminal act. For your efforts, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Police Service Award. All right, next is Mr. Corey Sanders present. Okay, I'm still going to read their acknowledgments. On June 20th, 2017, while working at the Venetian Villas apartments, Mr. Sanders happened to look out the office window and observed someone burglarizing his truck. Mr. Sanders immediately ran outside and observed the passenger door of his truck standing open. A male suspect exited the vehicle and fled on foot. Mr. Sanders ran after the suspect and pursued him through the complex. In an attempt to evade Mr. Sanders' efforts, the suspect entered a drainage ditch which was full of water. Without hesitation, Mr. Sanders went into the ditch, captured the suspect, and held him until officers arrived. The suspect was identified as a repeat juvenile offender, and because of previous criminal activity, he was also wearing a court-ordered ankle monitor. The juvenile's backpack contained stolen cell phones and a BB gun, which looked like an authentic firearm. Mr. Sanders is to be commended for his brave actions. He was instrumental in the arrest of a repeat offender and the clearance of other car burglaries in the area. His efforts embody the partnership between citizens and law enforcement. The Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present him with the Police Service Award. Now I ask Investigator Karen Ryan to come up.
Mr. Kevin Colley. I guess he's not here. I'm going to read his accomplishments. On October 1st, 2017, Mr. Colley was working as a security guard in the 600 block of West Tennessee Street. At approximately 1:30 a.m., he escorted a female friend from the bar to her car. Due to the level of her intoxication, she relinquished her keys and elected to rest in her car. Upon completing his shift, Mr. Colley returned to the parking lot to check on his friend's well-being, at which time he observed a male suspect inside the vehicle on top of her. She appeared to be unconscious and was oblivious to the fact the suspect was kissing her and attempting to remove her clothing. Recognizing the victim's vulnerability, Mr. Colley immediately intervened and pulled the suspect out of the car. Mr. Colley was confronted by the suspect and his friend, which resulted in a physical altercation with both men. Mr. Colley managed to fight off both subjects and ultimately restrained primary suspect until law enforcement arrived. It should be noted, while all of this was occurring, there were numerous patrons standing by. However, Mr. Colley was the only one who acted. The suspect was subsequently arrested and charged with burglary and attempted sexual assault. Mr. Colley, you are commended for your brave actions. You put yourself at great risk to aid another citizen and thwart a crime in progress. For your efforts, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Police Service Award. Next up, Mr. Brian Runk. Wow, I'm 0 for 2. Okay. On February 24th, 2018, the Tallahassee Fire Department and members from the Tallahassee Police Department were dispatched to a structure fire at 1881 Tacoma Court. Call notes indicated flames were visible and there was thick smoke coming from the second floor of the building. Initial notes indicated it is unknown if there were anyone trapped inside of the building. As units arrived on scene, it was determined a total of 7 adults and 7 children were inside the building at the time of the fire. The resident of apartment A removed 4 of her children. However, she was unable to rescue her infant son. Mr. Runk evacuated his family from the second floor of the building and then ran to the rear of apartment A to rescue the infant. The infant was reunited with his mother and both were treated for smoke inhalation. Knowing the likelihood of harming yourself, you did not think twice before running into apartment A, which was on fire, to rescue the infant. Mr. Brian Runk, the Tallahassee Police Department sincerely thanks you for your actions and willingness to save the life of a child who could not save themselves. For your efforts, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Police Service Award. Now, I know Mr. Jaffrey Brown is here. Can you come up? On March 1st, 2018, Mr. Brown was waiting on a Star Metro bus on Macon Road, and after approximately 20 minutes, he observed a 3-year-old child running around the area with no supervision. Mr. Brown realized it was morning hours when the children are supposed to be in school, and he saw that the child was wearing a backpack. Mr. Brown made contact with the child, who had nothing to identify himself and was unable to provide his name. Mr. Brown did not have a cell phone and was afraid of what might happen to the child if he continued to be left unattended. Mr. Brown and the child boarded the Star Metro bus for an appointment Mr. Brown was scheduled for. Mr. Brown knew the person he was meeting would be able to assist in the situation. Law enforcement was contacted, and through investigation, the child's identity was determined. The child was reunited with his family member, and it was determined there had been a miscommunication of who was taking the child to school. Mr. Brown, you knew the circumstances surrounding a young child being unsupervised on the side of a busy street needed to be addressed. Due to you not having a cell phone, you took the child to a location you knew was safe and requested assistance. Tallahassee Police Department sincerely thanks you for your actions, and we are pleased to present you with the Police Service Award. Next up to present is Investigator Isaacs.
Reserve Deputy Tim Hay and Officer Melinda Relethford, please. On June 11, 2017, at approximately 3:53 p.m., Officer Relethford encountered a medical emergency incident. As she was driving to work, she observed a collection of vehicles and people stopped near the intersection of Woodgate Way and Thomasville Road. The scene appeared to be a traffic crash, and Officer Relethford stopped to offer assistance. As Officer Relethford approached the group, she observed a male subject, later identified as Mr. Ronald Porter, lying face up on the ground. It was determined Mr. Porter was experiencing a medical emergency as he appeared slightly blue in color, his chest did not rise or fall, and his eyes were glazed over. After not observing any signs of suspicious or foul play surrounding Mr. Porter, Officer Relethford began attempts to revive him. Emergency medical services were requested to respond, and with the assistance of Leon County Sheriff's Office Reserve Deputy Tim Hay, Officer Relethford began performing two-person CPR. You provided emergency breaths, and Deputy Hay performed chest compressions on Mr. Porter. The two of you continued to perform CPR until relieved by Leon County EMS, who arrived minutes later. Mr. Porter was transported to Tallahassee Memorial Hospital and was revived. Mr. Porter's medical care was transferred to Dr. Manosa. According to Dr. Manosa, Mr. Porter was stabilized but remained in critical condition. Sadly, a few days after the medical emergency, Mr. Porter passed away while at the hospital. If not for the quick thinking, preparedness, and assistance of Officer Relethford, Mr. Porter most likely would have died on the side of Thomasville Road. For your assistance to one of our officers in the performance of CPR, Deputy Hay, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Police Service Award. Officer Relethford, given your actions, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Life Saving Award. Officer Clay Fallis. On June 15, 2017, at approximately 10:56 p.m., Officer Fallis responded to the La Quinta Inn on North Monroe Street regarding a shooting incident. Upon arrival, Officer Fallis observed the victim lying on the lobby floor, and during the assessment of the victim's condition, a bullet wound was discovered on both sides of his neck, with another gunshot wound to his chest. Officer Fallis maintained his calm composure and immediately administered medical treatment to include dressing the chest wound. He also managed to obtain information from the victim, which was critical to the subsequent investigation. On June 16, 2017, Tallahassee firefighter paramedic Zachary Wolfberg submitted an email regarding this incident, which stated, quote, Officer Fallis went above and beyond and even assisted TFD and LCMS paramedics in the back of the ambulance on the way to the hospital. He was professional, personable, and diligent, and went above and beyond the law enforcement role in a situation which required a multi-public safety discipline response. Officer Fallis, for your quick assessment and ability to relay information to the medical first responders, your actions were instrumental in saving the life of another. For your actions, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Life Saving Award. Officer Daryl Bagalt. On March 26, 2017, at approximately 5:06 a.m., Officer Bagalt responded to the Travelodge Motel on North Monroe Street in reference to a person not breathing in one of the rooms. Upon arrival, Officer Bagalt located the patient, identified as Mr. Charlie Henderson, lying on his back on the floor next to his bed in the motel room. Mr. Henderson had no pulse and was not breathing. Officer Bagalt did not hesitate and immediately began life-saving measures with CPR chest compressions. He continued CPR until firefighters arrived shortly thereafter to assume medical care. Mr. Henderson was ultimately transported to the Tallahassee Memorial Hospital by Emergency Medical Services. Once at the hospital, Mr. Henderson's condition improved. Dr. Willett informed Officer Bagalt that Mr. Henderson had a heart attack and was in critical condition, but he had a pulse and was breathing on his own. Officer Bagalt, the immediate intervention you provided was directly instrumental in saving the life of another. For your actions, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Life Saving Award. Next to present is Officer Ed Guerra.
Officer Ryan Sullivan, or Investigator Ryan Sullivan. On March 18, 2017, at approximately 11 p.m., patrol units were dispatched to a heroin overdose in the 2000 block of North Meridian Road. Officer Sullivan, who had completed his off-duty detail and was on his way home, heard the call. Without hesitation, he responded to the medical emergency. Officer Sullivan was the first officer to arrive on scene and went to the apartment where the patient was located. After a quick assessment, he determined there was no vital signs and began CPR. Officer Sullivan had the forethought to bring his AED with him, and after several moments, he utilized his pocket knife to cut away the patient's clothing in order to attach the AED pads. The AED advised continue CPR, which confirmed his initial assessment. Officer Sullivan continued CPR until EMS arrived to provide treatment to counter the effect of the heroin overdose. With Officer Sullivan's action, along with the treatment from EMS, the patient survived. Officer Sullivan, had you not acted as quickly and efficiently, the patient had not survived. For your professionalism and dedication to preserving life, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Life Saving Award. Officer Stephen Shields. On October 3rd, 2017, at approximately 2:45 a.m., Officer Shields was on his way home after working beyond his assigned shift due to call for service. As he was traveling south on Lapona Road, he was involved in a vehicle crash. The crash investigation revealed the other involved vehicle was traveling in excess of 55 miles per hour without headlights on and ran the red light, at which time it impacted his patrol vehicle. The driver of the other vehicle was found to be intoxicated. Officer Shields' patrol vehicle suffered extensive damage and in doing so rendered his door inoperable. Despite sustaining his own injuries, Officer Shields managed to climb out of the window and began assessing the condition of the other driver. He found the other vehicle to have sustained heavy damage and had caught fire. Due to the other vehicle damage, the front door were also inoperable, so he climbed through the rear door and pulled the intoxicated driver out of the burning vehicle. Additional patrol units arrived to assist, but their arrival, he remained calm and professional, even though he had just been involved in a serious traffic accident. Officer Shields, even after being involved in a traffic crash, you put yourself in a life-threatening situation of a vehicle which had caught fire to save driver who was unable to exit on their own. For your actions, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Life Saving Award. Officer William Deming and Officer Jonathan Albright. On February 4th, 2018, nearly 1,000 athletes participated in the Tallahassee Marathon event. Officer Jonathan Albright was working as a volunteer for the event, and Officer William Deming was on a traffic post assignment. Both were notified of a person in distress who was suffering a medical emergency. Both officers immediately left their assignments and searched for the person who was determined to have been a participant of the event. Officer Albright recognized the need to perform chest compression on the victim, while Officer Deming obtained his issued AED equipment and notified dispatch of the immediate need for EMS. The AED was applied and advised there was no pulse, so both Officer Albright and Officer Deming continued giving life-saving support to the victim until EMS arrived. Prior to EMS arriving, the victim regained a pulse. The victim was transported to Tallahassee Memorial, where medical personnel was able to stabilize. During this emergency, Officer Albright and Officer Deming were able to maintain their composure and decision-making. Their quick response and application of life-saving measures saved the life of the victim. Officer Albright and Officer Deming, the immediate intervention you provided was directly instrumental in saving the life of another. For your actions, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Life Saving Award. At this time, Sara will continue on.
May I please have Officer Stephanos Tterlikkis? The Police Patriot Service Medal is awarded to recognize members who serve not only their community, but also their country. It is given when a sworn or non-sworn members are activated under military orders to serve in a time of war, campaign, disaster, or national security issues. Officer Tterlikkis, the Tallahassee Police Department recognizes and appreciates the service and dedication you provide this community daily. We are also extremely proud of the service you provide to the United States Armed Forces, keeping this country safe, free, and the home of the brave. For your Air Force deployment September 24th, 2017 through March 31st, 2018, as mission support for Operation Freedom Centennial, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Police Patriot Service Medal. Officer Robert Grasso and Officer Greg Tucker. On March 12, 2017, officers were dispatched to a 34-year-old subject running away from his mother and through the woods on the southeast corner of Park Avenue and Blairstone Road. Officers were advised the subject was having a mental health crisis. The subject's mother was panicked and extremely afraid for her son's safety as she continued to chase him further into the woods, which became a swamp with knee-deep and at times thigh-deep water. Officers responded to this large area in an attempt to locate the pair. During this time, the mother stayed on the phone with the CDA, who relayed updated information. The mother informed the CDA the subject was lying in the water face up, and then he would continue to run further into the swamp, stopping to lay down in the water, then getting up and continuing to retreat further. All the while, his mother continued to follow while yelling at the request of dispatch to assist officers in pinpointing their location. Officers could not initially hear her screams, so they continued further into the woods until they reached the swampy water. There, they could hear the mother's frantic screams. At this point, the subject crawled so far into the water it was too deep for his mother to follow. As the incident continued, there was now a fear the subject was at a risk for hypothermia. Officer Grasso and Officer Tucker did not hesitate to continue off dry land into the swamp. They walked through hundreds of yards of wooded swamp water, attempting to locate the frantically screaming mother. Finally, they were able to locate her and her son, who were both exhausted and in crisis. Both officers heard an air horn from another officer's vehicle parked at a nearby apartment complex. The subject, who was now in a weakened state, was assisted by both officers through the swamp, eventually reaching the apartment complex where an ambulance was waiting. While all officers on scene did an excellent job, the extra care and consideration Officer Grasso and Officer Tucker displayed on this day deserve recognition. For your dedication, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Meritorious Service Award. Officer Georgia Northway. On November 11, 2017, Officer Northway and Officer Heckathorn responded to 1824 Green Tree Drive in reference to an unknown person living in the gym. Officer Northway took primary on the case and uncovered a substantial amount of criminal activity. She looked beyond the initial call for service of trespassing and investigated to the point of uncovering evidence related to several burglaries the defendant was responsible for committing. Officer Northway determined the defendant used a bogus name to thwart previous arrest and was issued a notice to appear under a moniker. Through her determination with the investigation, Officer Northway developed probable cause to arrest the defendant on several charges after discovering the property connected to 7 burglaries with 7 victims from 4 locations. The property recovered included expensive watches and family heirlooms, which were all able to be returned to the victims to provide a sense of closure regarding their victimization. The victims in these cases were very appreciative of Officer Northway's thorough work. In total, the defendant was charged with 11 felony charges and 6 misdemeanor charges. Officer Northway, because of your diligence and perseverance and looking beyond a basic trespassing call, you were able to bring closure to 7 significant cases with the apprehension of a suspect. For your outstanding work, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Meritorious Service Award. And Miss Annaliese Weirenga, if you come up and continue.
Investigator Jeff Caplan. On October 18, 2017, patrol officers responded to the Tallahassee Memorial Hospital in reference to an allegation of child abuse. The victim, a 5-year-old female, had several unexplained bruises and marks along her back and buttocks. The initial report to law enforcement came from the Department of Children and Families Child Protective Investigator, who interviewed the victim and her 2 juvenile siblings. Despite efforts, no disclosures were made as to how the victim sustained the injuries. Investigator Caplan was assigned the case and coordinated extensively with DCF and the Child Protection Team throughout the investigation. Through his coordinating with CPT, all 3 children received medical exams which revealed ongoing and severe physical abuse, possibly by one or both adoptive parents. The children were placed in temporary foster care while the investigation developed. Although the physical evidence clearly indicated harm, the children were too fearful to disclose who was responsible for the abuse. Without the disclosure, it appeared as if probable cause would not be able to be established. Investigator Caplan refused to allow these children to return to an abusive home, so he spent several months of intuitive, persistent, and innovative follow-up with the foster parents and DCF, which ultimately resulted in probable cause to charge both adoptive parents with aggravated child abuse without the disclosure from any of the children. Investigator Caplan, because of your diligence and perseverance, you saved 3 children from further victimization. Your dedication, hard work, and innovative investigative strategy ensured justice was served and the 2 suspects were apprehended. For your effort, the Tallahassee Police Department is proud to present you the Meritorious Service Award. Officer Stephen Alcama and Officer Rebecca White. On February 6, 2018, at approximately 3:52 a.m., Officer Alcama was proactively patrolling the area of West St. Augustine Street and Gay Street in reference to recent auto and residential burglaries occurring in the area. Officer Alcama observed a black male in a dark-colored hoodie behind 655 West St. Augustine Street at the foot of the stairs leading to the back deck of a residence. The male was observed looking at his phone and also in possession of a backpack. Officer Alcama parked and got out on foot, making a consensual encounter with the male. The male stated he was looking for a friend's apartment and could only give the first name of the subject. Officer Alcama was upfront with the male, stating he was concerned with his being in the area in the early morning hours due to the recent burglaries. Officer Alcama asked for identification from the male, who stated it was probably in his vehicle. Officer Alcama and the male walked to the vehicle. The male was unable to locate his identification, but after opening the vehicle door, he placed his backpack in the front seat, closing the door. The male was asked to provide his biological information, at which time Officer White arrived on scene and observed 2 plastic bags of cannabis in plain sight on the front passenger side floorboard of the male's vehicle. The male was taken into custody and post-Miranda admitted that he had purchased the cannabis earlier in the day. A search of the vehicle revealed credit cards not in his name, along with an Xbox One. After a check of serial numbers and research of the names on the credit cards, it was determined they were stolen property. The male agreed to speak with investigators, and through the investigation, he was connected to multiple cases of residential burglaries. Knowing there was a problem in his assigned zone, Officer Alcama conducted a consensual encounter, which ultimately led to Officer White observing illegal narcotics in the vehicle in plain view, which led to the discovery of stolen property. Officer Alcama and Officer White, for your outstanding service protecting property and human life and successful closure of significant criminal cases, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Meritorious Service Award. All right, next up is a unit citation. And if I can have the following members of the records section: Miss Beverly Howie, Miss Anita Anderson, Miss Anna Ross, Mr. Antonio Simmons, Miss Catherine Sheffield, Miss Esther Gurr, Miss Janice Dobson, Miss Latina Wilson, Miss Lisa Randolph, Ms. Luann Doe, Ms. Marcia Williams Hill, and Mr. Matthew Malou. The police records section is responsible for completing and processing the Uniform Crime Report, the UCR. The task is very complex, detailed, and demanding work. In October 2017, a records audit from an outside company commenced. During the audit, it was discovered that many coding corrections were needed, and numerous supplemental reports from 2017 still needed to be processed prior to completing the final 2017 UCR report. The records section was placed on mandatory overtime in order to address and complete this backlog of reports. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement granted an extension to submit the UCR report. In February 2018, the records section supervisor retired, and the interim supervision duties were assumed by Ms. Beverly Howie. Under the direction of Ms. Howie, the unit pulled together as a team and displayed a positive can-do attitude. They put in hours of overtime and stayed focused while completing this daunting task, as well as their daily responsibilities. Every individual did an outstanding job, which was reflected in the final product and completed within the time allotted. The records section showed commitment and pride in their work under very difficult circumstances And for these actions, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present you with the Unit Citation Award. I'll turn it over to Sergeant Wilder.
Good afternoon. I'm going to continue with the unit citations. Would the members of the Tallahassee Police Department Training Unit step forward? Sergeant Tina Haddon, Sergeant Scott Angulo, Officer Brian Reeder, Officer Wayne Statz, Officer Vicky Posey, and retired Officer Alan Donaldson. The training section is responsible for developing and implementing curriculum to help officers work safely and professionally. Additionally, they have the daunting task of maintaining a large volume of equipment to meet those needs. From March 2016 through March 2017, members of the training section went above and beyond their normal duties. Notable highlights include the following. In April of 2016, the department sponsored all 21 individuals of the Basic Recruit Academy. This is important, as this was the first time an academy class consisted solely of Tallahassee Police Department employees. Coordination took place before the academy class started, and members acted as liaisons during the 7-month period to ensure an acceptable level of professionalism and training achievements. The success of the department's Basic Recruit Academy would not have been possible without the dedication of this training section. In October of 2016, the department obtained 400 new X2 tasers. Thank you. For issuance to all sworn members. The contract was negotiated for a 5-year period with extra items to be included. In December 2016, a technical representative assisted with the testing of each taser and all 800 batteries. A training schedule was developed and coordinated for all sworn members to be issued and trained on the new taser. The training section's attention to detail and customer service attitude made the implementation of this project a resounding success. In November 2016, the Department of Defense, along with the LESO 1033, I don't want to say LESO, I don't know if that's correct or not, called for an on-site inspection of the Department of Defense rifles that are issued to us. This was the department's first time participating in an on-site audit from the program. Times were coordinated for all 64 rifles to be turned in for the inspection. The inspection team complimented the program's organization and sent a letter indicating the department had easily passed the on-site inspection. The training section ensured all department members received quality equipment and training. Because of their diligence, the Tallahassee Police Department has the necessary tools to continue providing our citizens with the high quality of service and protection they have become accustomed to. For the leadership and dedication, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present the training section with the Unit Citation Award. Thank you all. Will the members of the Juvenile Services Unit please step forward? Sergeant George Kramer, Investigator Michael Schwab, Investigator Ray Garcia, Officer Matthew Wagner, Officer Ernest Certain, Miss Connie Jenkins Pye, and Mr. Norman Billups. In June of 2016, as a response to the increase in juvenile-related crimes, the Tallahassee Police Department implemented the Juvenile Services Unit, the JSU. The goal for the JSU was to identify prolific juvenile offenders and target these individuals with the intent of significantly decreasing juvenile crime throughout the city. Sergeant George Kramer was tasked with the supervision of the JSU, and through his leadership, along with the hard work of the members of this unit, they identified over 200 students in Leon County schools who were truant. Since truancy is considered a risk factor for juveniles in our location, focusing on truancy is of significant importance to improving the quality of life for the Tallahassee citizens. The JSU helped establish a core group within the community to address truancy, along with working with youth and their parents to make attending school a priority. This approach is establishing a better relationship between the Tallahassee youth and the police department. In addition to specialized training, the JSU has developed and strengthened long-term relationships with multiple agencies. Since January 1st, 2017, the JSU has investigated 345 new cases, issued 157 criminal warrants, and made 160 arrests, with a total of 275 charges. The JSU has identified over 60 prolific offenders, validated 2 entirely new criminal gangs, and updated and or validated 40 gang members. The members of the JSU have demonstrated outstanding performance and efficiency in apprehending juvenile criminals, preventing juvenile crimes, and investigating juvenile crimes related activity and identifying prolific juvenile offenders. This hard work has led to a significant decrease in juvenile related crimes in our community. The members of the JSU exemplify the mission, statement, and vision of the Tallahassee Police Department. For their effort, the Tallahassee Police Department is proud to present the Juvenile Services Unit with a Unit Citation Award. Thank you. Last but not least, the last unit citation and award for this afternoon. The following members of the Violent Crimes Unit, please step forward. Sergeant Jeff Mahoney, Sergeant James Bessie, retired investigator Craig Isom, who's smiling all the way, retired investigator Steve Dawes, investigator Brittany Abel, investigator Dan Copeland, investigator Sherry Bennett, investigator Jarrett Federico, investigator Jerry Megna, investigator Lyle Otley, investigator Jason Newhouse, and last but not least, investigator Nick Roberts. The Violent Crimes Unit, commonly referred to as VCU of the Criminal Investigations Bureau, is comprised of 2 highly motivated units which cover both homicide and robbery investigations throughout the city. An assignment in VCU takes a person with dedication and a very strong work ethic. Due to the complexity of the cases, teamwork is the hallmark for this unit. VCU investigators work long hours to ensure a successful resolution on all of their cases. A snapshot of this dedication and teamwork was highlighted during a simple 10-day period in June of 2017. On June 6, 2017, the Violent Crimes Unit was summoned to North Monroe Street and West Tharp Street for an officer-involved shooting incident. An officer's attempt to stop a burglary suspect in a stolen vehicle resulted in the driver attempting to hit the officer with that vehicle. A shot was fired by the officer at the suspect, and the suspect quickly surrendered. After a thorough investigation, the case was presented to the state attorney's office with a determination that the case was justified. That subject was arrested for several criminal felony charges. Also on June 6th, the very same day, 2017, the Violent Crimes Unit was summoned to 2833 South Adams Street regarding a home invasion robbery. It was ultimately determined there had been a robbery attempt by 3 suspects in an apartment. The residents of that apartment, one of which, all the residents were in fear at that time, and one of the residents in that apartment fired shots at the suspects, fatally wounding one and seriously injuring another. At the completion of this case, the 2 remaining suspects alive were charged with felony murder and armed home invasion robbery. On June 10th, 4 days later, 2017, Violent Crimes Unit was summoned to 3709 Tyson Green Way regarding 2 subjects who were found deceased in a vehicle with apparent gunshot wounds. Witnesses reported hearing gunshots just prior to the discovery of the victims. The case moved at a very fast pace, which resulted in numerous search warrants and investigative leads, which led to the identification of several suspects. As a result of the investigation, a total of 3 suspects were charged with a variety of charges, including homicide. On June 15th, 2017, patrol officers responded to the La Quinta Inn after a victim collapsed in the lobby. You might have remembered this. I think this was Officer Fallis' life-saving award. The victim was found to be suffering from several gunshot wounds. Officers rendered aid, and the victim was transported to the hospital for emergency surgery. Combined efforts were coordinated, which ultimately led to the suspect being charged with numerous felonies related to the shootings, as well as an additional sexual battery. In summary, during the first 6 months of 2017, members of the Violent Crimes Unit were assigned 824 cases. 5 of the 6 homicides that occurred were solved, and 252 cases were cleared by the issuance of warrants and/or arrest. For their continued dedication and professionalism, the Tallahassee Police Department is pleased to present all of you in the Violent Crimes Unit with the Unit Citation Award. Sergeant Osborn.
I would like to again thank Tallahassee Community College for their generosity in allowing us to use these wonderful facilities. On behalf of the awards board, I would like to thank everyone who took time out of their busy schedules to be here today to honor our outstanding citizens and department members and their well-deserved efforts. Again, congratulations to those who received awards. And I just want to echo what the chief said. It doesn't have to be a long nomination. It can be a paragraph. We can work on it later. Please feel free to contact me if you need help in submitting somebody for an award. But I'm happy to be in this position, and I want to recognize as much good work as we do and get it out here in the public so they can see what good work we do. If you have any questions regarding the award ceremony or any awards you received, I'll be down here at the front and happy to talk with you. Before we go our separate ways, I would like to ask Chaplain Alford to please dismiss us with a benediction.
If you would, pray with me. Almighty God, we commend to your gracious care and keeping these men and women who have been recognized today. Help us, O Lord, to continue the good work they have begun. Strengthen us in our efforts to blot out injustice and hurt. Give us compassion as we serve those whose lives have been broken by crime. Give us courage as we face oppression, and give us peace as we enter into conflict with those who would do evil. Help us to strive to the example set by these men and women. Amen.